Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjanashalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sahagana Lalit Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktarunda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nasta Praye Shabadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistriki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. What's number Canto 1. Chapter 9 and verse number 6 and 7. Parvato Narado Domyo Bhagavan Badarayanaha Bhradashvo Bharatvajaha Shashishyo Renuka Sutaha Vasista Indra Pramadas Trito Gristamado Stitaha Kakshivan Gautamo Trischa Kaushikota Sudarshanaha. One more time. Parvato Narado Dhomyo Bhagavan Badarayanaha Brahadashvo Bharadvaja Shashishyo Renuka Sutaha Vasista Indra Pramadas Trito Gritsamadostitaha Kakshivan Gautamo Trischa Kaushikosta Sudarshanaha. Parvata Muni, Narada Muni, Dhaumya, Bhagavan, incarnation of Godhead, Badarayana, Vyasadeva, Bharadasva, Bharadvaja, Sasishya, along with the disciples, Renuka Sutaha, Parashuram, Vasista, Indra Pramada, Trita, Gritsamada, Asita, again, Kakshivan, Gautama, Atri, Cha, and Kaushika, Ataha, as well as Sudarshana. Translation and purport. All the sages like Parvata Muni, Narada, Dhaumya, Vyasa, the incarnation of God, Brihadasva, Bharadvaja, and Parashuram, and disciples, Vasista, Indra Pramada, Trita, Gritsamada, Asita, Kakshivan, Gautama, Atri, Kaushika, and Sudarshana were present. It's a long purport today. Parvata Muni is considered to be one of the oldest sages. Today's Bhagavatam class is actually in the purport only. I don't know how much I can speak, but I'll just read. Maybe please focus on and hear, because this purport gives a lot of insight on each of the sages here. Parvata Muni is considered to be one of the oldest sages. He is almost always a constant companion of Narada Muni. They are also spacemen competent to travel in the air without the help of any material vehicle. Parvata Muni is also a Devarshi, or a great sage amongst the demigods, like Narada. He was present along with Narada at the sacrificial ceremony of Maharaj Janamejaya, the son of Maharaj Parikshit. In this sacrifice, all the snakes of the world were to be killed. Parvata Muni and Narada Muni are called Gandharvas, also because they can travel in the air singing the glories of the Lord. Since they can travel in the air, they observed Draupadi's Swayamvara ceremony, selecting of her own husband. Swayamvara means selecting of her own husband from the air. Like Narada Muni, Parvata Muni also used to visit the royal assembly in the heaven of King Indra. As a Gandharva, sometimes he visited the royal assembly of Kuvera, one of the important demigods. Both Narada and Parvata were once in the trouble with the daughter of Maharaj Srinjaya. Maharaj Srinjaya got the benediction of a son by Parvata Muni. Narada Muni is this. Next is the Narada Muni. Narada Muni is inevitably associated with the narrations of the Puranas. He is described in the Bhagavatam. In his previous life, he was the son of the maidservant. But by good association with the pure devotees, he became enlightened in devotion service. And in the next life, he became a perfect man, comparable with himself only. In the Mahabharata, his name is mentioned in many places. He is the principal Devarshi, or the chief sage among the demigods. He is the son and disciple of Brahmaji. And from him, the disciplic succession in the line of Brahma has been spread. He initiated Prahalad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and many celebrated devotees of the Lord. He initiated even Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedic literatures. And from Vyasadeva, Madhvacharya was initiated. And thus, the Madhva Sampradaya, in which the Gaudiya Sampradaya is also included, has spread all over the universe. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu belonged to his Madhva Sampradaya. Therefore, Brahmaji, Narada, Vyasa, down to Madhva, Chaitanya, and Goswamis all belong to the same line of disciplic succession. Naradaji has instructed many kings from the time immemorial. In the Bhagavatam, we can see that he instructed Prahalad Maharaj while he was in the womb of his mother. And he instructed Vasudeva, father of Krishna, as well as Maharaj Yudhishthira. Next is Daumya, a great sage who practiced severe penances at Utkochaka Tirtha and was appointed royal priest of the Pandava kings. He acted as a priest in many religious functions of the Pandavas, which is samskaras, and also each of the Pandavas was attended by him at the betrothal of Draupadi. He was present even during the exile of the Pandavas and used to advise them in circumstances when they were perplexed. He instructed them how to live incognito for 1 year, and his instructions were strictly followed by the Pandavas. During that time, his name is mentioned also when the general funeral ceremony was performed after the Battle of Kurukshetra. In the Anusasana Parva of Mahabharata 127.15 and 16, he gave very elaborate religious instructions to Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was actually the right type of priest of a householder, for he could guide the Pandavas on the right path of a religion. A priest is meant for guiding the householder progressively in the right path of ashrama dharma, or the occupational duty of a particular caste. There is practically no difference between the family priest and the spiritual master. The sages, saints, and the brahmanas are especially meant for such functions. Badarayana Vyasadeva. He is known as Krishna Dvaipayana, Satyavati Sutta, Parasharya, Parasharatmaja, Badarayana, Vedavyas, etc. He was son of Mahamuni Parashara in the womb of Satyavati prior to her betrothal with Maharaj Shantanu, the father of the great general grandfather Bhisma Dev. He is a powerful incarnation of Narayana, and he broadcast the Vedic wisdom to the world. As such, Vyasadeva is offered respects before one chants the Vedic literature. Especially the Puranas. Shukadeva Goswami was his son, and the rishis like Vaishampayana were his disciples for different branches of the Vedas. He is the author of the great epic Mahabharata and the great transcendental literature Bhagavatam. The Brahma Sutras, the Vedanta Sutras, or Badarayana Sutras were compiled by him. Amongst sages, he is most respected author by dint of severe penances. When he wanted to record the great epic Mahabharata for the welfare of all people in the age of Kali, he was feeling the necessity of a powerful writer who could take up his dictation. By the order of Brahmaji, Sri Ganeshji took up the charge of noting down the dictation on the condition that Vasudev would not stop dictation for a moment. The Mahabharata was thus compiled by the joint endeavor of Vyasa and Ganesha. By the order of his mother, Satyavati, who was later married to Maharaj Shantanu, and by the request of Bhishma Deva, the eldest son of Maharaj Shantanu, by his first wife, the Ganges, he got 3 brilliant sons, whose names were Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura. The Mahabharata was compiled by Vyasadeva after the Battle of Kurukshetra and after the death of all the heroes of Mahabharata. It was first spoken in the royal assembly of Maharaj Janamejaya, the son of Maharaj Parikshit. Brihadasva. And Brihadasva is an ancient sage who used to meet Maharaj Yudhishthira now and then. First of all, he met Maharaj Yudhishthira at Kamyavana. This sage narrated the history of Maharaj Nala. There is another Brihadasva who is the son of Ikshvaku dynasty. Next one is Bharadwaja. He is one of the 7 great rishis and was present at the time of the birth ceremony of Arjuna. The powerful rishi sometimes undertook severe penances on the shore of the Ganges, and his ashrama is still celebrated at Prayagadama Prayag Dham, actually Prayag Dham. It is learned that this rishi, while taking bath in the Ganges, happened to meet Gritachi, one of the beautiful society girls of the heaven, and thus he discharged semen, which was kept and preserved in the earthen pot, and from which Drona was born. So, Dronacharya is the son of Bharadwaj Muni. Others say that Bharadwaja, the father of Drona, is a different person from Maharshi Bharadwaj. He was a great devotee of Brahma. Once he approached Dronacharya and requested him to stop the battle of Kurukshetra. Next is Parashuram or Renuka Sutta. He is the son of Maharshi Jamadagni and Srimati Renuka. Thus, he is also known as Renuka Sutta. He is one of the powerful incarnations of God, and he killed the Kshatriya community as a whole 21 times. With the blood of the Kshatriyas, he pleased the souls of his forefathers. Later on, he underwent severe penances at the Mahendra Parvata. After taking the whole earth from the Kshatriyas, he gave it in the charity to Kashyapa Muni. Parashara Muni instructed the Dhanur Veda, or the science of fighting, to Dronacharya because he happened to be a Brahmana. He was present during the coronation of Maharaj Yudhishthira, and it celebrated the function along with the other great rishis. Parashara Muni is so old that he met both Rama and Krishna at different times. He fought with Rama, but he accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He also praised Arjuna when he saw him with Krishna. When Bhisma refused to marry Amba, who wanted him to become her husband, Amba met Parashuram, and by her request only, he asked Bhishma Dev to accept her as his wife. Bhishma refused to obey his order, although he was one of the spiritual masters of Bhishma Dev. Parashuram fought with Bhishma Dev, and when Bhishma neglected his warning, both of them fought very severely, and at last Parashuram was pleased with Bhishma and gave him the benediction of becoming the greatest fighter in the world. Next comes Vashishta, the great celebrated sage among the Brahmanas, well known as Brahmarshi Vashishta Dev. He is the prominent figure in both Ramayana and Mahabharata periods. He celebrated the coronation ceremony of the personality of Godhead Sri Rama. He was present also on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He could approach all the higher and lower planets, and his name is also connected with the history of Hiranyakashipu. There was a great tension between him and Vishwamitra, who wanted his Kamadhenu, wish-fulfilling cow. Vasishtha Muni refused to spare his Kamadhenu, and for this Vishwamitra killed his 100 sons. As a perfect Brahmana, he tolerated all the taunts of Vishwamitra. Once he tried to commit suicide on the account of Vishwamitra's torture, but all his attempts were unsuccessful. He jumped from a hill, but the stones on which he fell became a stack of cotton, and thus he was saved. He jumped into the ocean, but the waves washed him ashore. He jumped into the river, but the river also washed him ashore. Thus, all his suicide attempts were unsuccessful. He is also one of the 7 rishis and the husband of Arundhati, the famous star. Indrapramada, another celebrated rishi. And next one is Trita, One of the three sons of Prajapati Gautama, he was the third son, and his other two brothers were known as Ekat and Dvita. All the brothers were great sages and strict followers of the principles of religion. By dint of severe penances, they were promoted to Brahmaloka, the planet where Brahmaji lives. Once, Trita Muni fell into a well. He was an organizing worker of many sacrifices, and as one of the great sages, he also came to show respect to Bhishmaji at his deathbed. He was one of the 7 sages in the Varuna Loka. He hailed from the western countries of the world. As such, most probably he belonged to the European countries. At that time, the whole world was under one Vedic culture. Grit Samada, one of the sages of heavenly kingdom. I never heard this name. He was a close friend of Indra, the king of heaven, and was as great as Brahaspati. He used to visit the royal assembly of Maharaj Yudhishthira, and he also visited the place where Bhishma Dev breathed his last. Sometimes he explained the glories of Lord Shiva before Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was the son of Vitahavya, and he resembled in features the body of Indra. Sometimes the enemies of Indra mistook him to be the Indra and arrested him. He was a great scholar of Rig Veda, and thus he was highly respected by the Brahmana community. He lived a life of celibacy and was powerful in every respect. Asita. Asita, there was a king of the same name, but herein the Asita mentioned is the Asita Devala Rishi, a great powerful sage of the time. He explained to his father 1,500,000 verses from the Mahabharata. He was one of the members in the snake sacrifice of Maharaj Janamejaya. He was also present during the coronation ceremony of Maharaj Yudhishthira along with the other great rishis. He also gave Maharaj Yudhishthira instructions while he was on the Anjana hill, and he was also one of the devotees of the Lord Shiva. Kakshivan is another sage. One of the sons of the Gautama Muni and the father of the great sage, Chanda Kaushika. He was one of the members of the parliament of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Next comes Atri. Atri Muni was a great Brahmana sage and one of the mental sons of Brahmaji. Brahmaji is so powerful that he simply, by thinking of a son, he can have it. These sons are known as Manasaputras. Out of 7 Manasaputras of Brahmaji and out of 7 great Brahmana sages, Atri was one. In his family, the great Prachetas were also born. Atri Muni had 2 Kshatriya sons who became kings. King Artama is one of them. He is counted as one of the 21 Prajapatis. His wife's name was Anasuya, and he helped Maharaj Parikshit in his great sacrifices. Kaushika Muni, one of the permanent Rishi members in the royal assembly of Maharaj Yudhishthira. He sometimes met Lord Krishna. There are several other sages of the same time. Same name. Sudarshana, this wheel which is accepted by personality of Godhead, Vishnu or Krishna, as his personal weapon, is the most powerful weapon. greater than the Brahmastras or similar other disastrous weapons. In some of the Vedic literature, it is said that Agni Deva, the fire god, presented this weapon to Lord Krishna, Sri Krishna. But factually, this weapon is eternally carried by the Lord. Agni Deva presented this weapon to Krishna in the same way that Rukmani was given by Maharaj Rukma to the Lord. The Lord accepts such presentations from his devotees, even though such presentations are eternally his property. There is an elaborate description of this weapon in the Adi Parva of Mahabharata. Lord Shri Krishna used this weapon to kill Shishupal, a rival of the Lord. He also killed Salva by his weapon, and sometimes he wanted his friend Arjuna to use it to kill his enemies, which is Mahabharata Virata Parva 56.3. So the purport ended. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langaite girim yat krupa tamaham bande Shri Gurum Dina Taranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Thank you for joining the Bhagavatam class this morning. And also thank you for giving this opportunity again. I actually, when Prabhu asked me, put a message there, I said, okay, let me grab and at least read for today's. And I request all the Vaishnavas here assembled in Zoom to pray and bless so that I can speak something with my limited knowledge. And whatever I'm doing is just for my purification and then pleasing the Lord, trying to please the Lord. I was lucky to get this verse because the 30 minutes is over. It is a weekday. I think the class would have been ended, but today is a Sunday, so maybe I need to speak a little bit here. Most of the Munis, they came from different, not from the planet Earth, not just from the planet Earth, but they also came from different planetary systems. And I was thinking, why all these sages came to see the passing away of Bhisma Dev, how great he was. Bhisma Dev's name was Devadrita, if I am not wrong. Devavrata. So Devavrata became Bhisma Dev. And what made him to become Bhisma Dev was a big story. And I'm not much qualified in Mahabharata anyway, but I'll try with my understanding by hearing the lectures from other devotees. To start with, who was this Bhisma Dev, Devadrita? So he was born to Mother Ganges and Shantanu. I think past 2-3 days, devotees are explaining very, very well. And I don't know how much I can add, but I'll try. After his birth, he started growing. And because mother was none other than Ganges, she had contacts of many great sages. Because Mother Ganges she's actually coming from the spiritual world anyway. But in this planet Earth, she had many, many contacts with all the great sages. And how Devavrata was taught, he was in the various educational, we normally go to elementary school and middle school and so on and so forth, undergrad, graduate, etc. But that time, I don't know what was the system. It tried from the Gurukula, right? In fact, we know that Krishna went to Gurukula himself and learned 64 64 thing, is it an item? 64 Vidya, a lot of education in 64 days, and he became perfected. That was Krishna. And if you, now for Bhishma Dev, Brahaspati, Brahaspati was, I think, he taught Bhishma Dev, this Devavrata, the duties of a king, which is Dharma Shastra. Shukracharya taught him political science. Vasistha Muni taught him branches of Vedas, different branches of Vedas. Sanat Kumara taught him the spiritual science. Markandeya Rishi taught him the duties of Brahmana. The Markandeya Rishi, I don't know how many lives, how long he left. He lived for almost 5 kalpas, I believe. So when that Rishi, Markandeya Rishi, taught duties of a Brahmana. And Parashuram taught a science of warfare. And these many sages taught Devavrata or Vaishmadev many, all these shastras. So pretty much political science, spiritual science, duties, dharma, and warfare. This is what required in the previous yuga. Even today, one education, what we know is undergraduate, postgraduate, and start working. That's all we know. And now, after many, we open our eyes about the spiritual science, maybe after 20, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and sometimes even 60 years. We don't even know the spiritual science anyway. And we would have heard something on the Vedas. Vedas is just the ritual part of it. But I don't think we learned anything in all this what is mentioned. So Shantanu, the story goes a little bit further, how Devavrata became Bhishma Dev. So Devavrata's son, father, he approached a fisherman because he was in love with the daughter of a fisherman. So he wants to marry the daughter of a fisherman. When he approached the fisherman said, I don't think I can give my daughter to you. If at all, if I give you, there are certain conditions. That means nobody in your, none of your sons should become the king. Only the son who is born by the fisherman's daughter should be supposed to be the king and should be the king. And Shantanu, he was a little bit upset what to do. His son Devavrata, none other than Bhishma Dev, maybe I'll just say Bhishma Dev, he approached, he was looking at his father and said what happened. Then he came to know the reason behind why he was upset. And Bhishma Dev himself goes to the fisherman and understood the conditions. He told that he is not going to marry, and the son who will be born from the fisherman's daughter will be the king going forward. And king is not just a king of a province, right? He is actually for the entire world. And that was his first vow. So Bhishma Dev took his first vow. What is that? He remained celibate. Why? Because he also said, fisherman said, not just the son, even the grandchildren also should not rule none of them should rule. That means Bhishma Dev should not marry. Bhishma Dev should not rule the kingdom, and also his sons, Bhishma Dev's children also should not rule the kingdom. So that was the condition. So that's why Devavrata, he took a vow saying he will remain celibate for his entire life and not to marry. That was a terrific vow. And there are another vow he took. He said, what was that is basically sacrificing, becoming the king. One is the celibate, not to marry. The other one is renounce the kingdom of a whole planet. One of the stories I heard was a teacher comes to, he was teaching his student, and he was telling all the universes in the entire cosmic manifestation belongs to Krishna. Oh yeah, yes. The student was telling yes. And he said, not just that, all the planetary systems of this universe belongs to Krishna. And then student said, yes. And then he said, all the mountains and gardens and rivers and oceans of this planet all belongs to Krishna. And then he said, you, your family, your everything, where you stay, everything belongs to Krishna. And the student said, no. Apartment belongs to my mom. It's in the name of my mom. It's not belonging to Krishna. It is my mom's. So think about, even though entire cosmic manifestation belongs to Krishna, we ourselves with a small house, we say it's ours. It's mine. It belongs to me. How selfish we are, in spite of knowing everything. We want to be selfish because it's all mine, that I and me will never go. That's not easy for us. But Bhishma Dev sacrificed the entire, becoming the king for the entire planet. It's not easy. And the third vow is, whoever rules the kingdom, he will support, he will protect in every aspect, and he treats the king, whoever rules that kingdom, as the representation of father. In that way, he will always, anybody rules the planet, he will just support him, but is not going to do anything other than protecting and supporting. So what is his service is to just render service, but never accept the post. That is his life. And so all this was, because of that, all the demigods and everybody in the upper planetary system, they said, they were all perplexed, and they said, Bhishma, that means you become the Bhishma, because it's not that easy. So Devavrata became Bhishma. That's why he got the name of Bhishma. And from this, father also gave him the benediction that to choose the time of his own death. So Bhishma Dev himself is almost like an immortal. He can live forever, how many ever years he wants, and he can choose his own death. Yeah. So this was a little bit background of how this was, and that's how he can choose his own death and immortal. 2 days ago, we were talking about Vasus. So Bhishma Dev is from his previous life. He was the 8th Vasu, it seems. Vasus are from the higher planets. They try to steal the calf of the cow belongs to Vashishta Muni, and it's Nandini. So they try to steal the calf, which is Nandini, the daughter of Kamadhenu cow, and they got cursed, and they were all the 8 Vasus were born in the planet Earth. So they were cursed to take birth in the Mrityaloka. Mrityaloka is our planet. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. So this is Mrityaloka. And for what happened, all this, out of 8, 7 were born the moment all the children were born to Mother Ganges. And out of 8, 7 were born, but they were delivered. But the one person who stole the calf, which is Nandini, was in trouble. So he is none other than Bhishma Dev, and he has to live here for a long time. That was the curse. And that way, Bhishma Dev lived long. So that was one of the historical story I heard, because I did not much know about all this. So he became immortal. And one of this, in this verse, we saw that Parashuram, he fought with Parashuram. Parashuram was there in the previous Yuga and before that also. That means in the Treta Yuga and Dwapar Yuga. In Devavrata's, Bhishma Dev's was a long, he was, as we know, he was living a long life. There was one Amba and Ambalika, there were 2 sisters of Kash, the daughter, I think the king of Kashya, which is King Kashi. And they were, one of the daughters, Amba, was supposed to marry Bhishma Dev. Since Bhishma Dev took vow that he will never marry, Amba was behind, but Bhishma Dev rejected. I said he never accepted, but he doesn't want to marry anyway. Amba entered the fire, and she had a grudge to kill Bhishma Dev. And that time, actually, before the death, she complained the spiritual master of Bhishma Dev. Spiritual master of Bhishma Dev was none other than Parshuram. He himself is an incarnation of God. And he, in fact, he killed all the 21, Kshatriyas of the 21, I think 20 dynasties or something. But so many Kshatriyas were killed, and Bhishma Dev was not killed. That means he was a very good king. Not king, but he was a very good personality. And that's how he accepted him as a disciple as well. And so in the next life of Amba, she was born to Drupada, Draupadi, which is a brother Drushtadimna, right? So son of Drupada. Drushtadimna, Draupadi, and this Amba she was also born to Drupada. Drupada, so Amba, she was a girl, and later he became a boy. So, and this is they're called a Shikhandi. So there was a trick Krishna played, even though Krishna was the charioteer of Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. That time Krishna made Shikhandi as a charioteer. So Bhishma Dev, when he was fighting with Arjuna, the moment he saw the Shikhandi as a charioteer, he doesn't want to fight, because what if the arrows fall on Shikhandi? So he doesn't want to fight. And he actually put his weapons down. So that was an opportunity, and as a trick, Krishna played. And Arjuna, he throws so many arrows, and all the arrows were pierced onto Bhishma Dev, and he fell down. The way the arrows were pierced was every part of his body, and when he fell down, that became a bed of arrows for Bhishma Dev, and he was falling. He was lying on that bed of arrows. Still, he don't want to die, right? So because he was waiting for a right time when the sun moves to the northern hemisphere, and that's where it's a good time for him to when somebody leaves at that time during the summer, Uttarayana, just beginning of the summer, right? So Uttarayana, then that is the time if somebody dies, yogis, they will achieve the higher planetary system. And Bhishma Dev was coming from higher planetary system, so he wants to go back. That's just a kind of story for us to understand. But his mercy was Krishna was present, and he chanted at the time of death Vishnu Sahasranama, and he left the planet and is back. I think the destiny is going back to Godhead. I don't know about the destiny. Where did he go? Of course, he's a great Bhagavata. He went back to Godhead in one understanding of mine. So now, yesterday's discussion, I was also hearing the class yesterday, and then I saw, who is this Mahajan? He's a great personality. Bhishma Dev is a great personality. And that is why all the rishis from the different planets also came to, as a matter of love, respect, and affection. So how, somebody dies, on the deathbed, people will come to see, relatives, friends will come. But how did all these people come to know? All these rishis come to know that from a different planet, they came to know how Bhishma Dev is leaving the body. So the messenger was Narada Muni. Narada Muni can communicate the message. There was no WhatsApp message at that time to send a message to everyone. So the Narada Muni can travel, and that's why he also says Gandharva in the purport. Prabhupada says he's one of the Gandharvas because he can, of course he was Gandharva earlier, but he can travel anywhere into the different planetary system and pass the message. So that's how all these rishis came down to see Bhishma Dev passing away. Great personality. So how is the great personality was another question. Mahajan. I am from South India, and I heard from my childhood, Endaro Mahanubhavalu Andariki Vandanamulu is from the Carnatic classic music, which always in my heart. This is sung and compiled by our great poet, who is, do you know?
Tyagaraja.
Tyagaraja. So Tyagaraja, Tyagaya, he is the one who compiled this, Endaro Mahanubhavalu. So this is one of the Pancharatra Kritis. Every year in the memory of Tyagaraja is being sung in South India, especially in Chennai. And all the Carnatic classical music, all the whoever interested, I think they're all very well versed. All the people assembled there and then recite this Pancharatna Kriti. I have in my childhood, even today sometimes I hear and I see the complete, so many people sit there and hear. I believe it or not, when I was trying to listen, reading this story, something about Mahajan, suddenly it came to my heart and said, what is this? Actually, I didn't know. I went to the lyrics of Endaro Mahanubhavalu, and then I was surprised that the 7th Charana and 9th Charana, Tyagaraja, he describes and glorifies all the 12 Mahajans, Lord Shiva, Kumaras, Prahalad Maharaj, Narada, and so many kings. And in the 9th one, he also glorifies the great Bhagavatas. That means great personalities. So Endaro Mahanubhavalu, according to the Telugu, so these are all Mahajans. In that way, Bhisma Dev is one of the Mahajans. So why do we say Mahajan? So I want to read. I know there is a short of time, but I'll take maybe 10 minutes extra today, if it is okay for all of you. There is one verse in Srimad Bhagavatam of Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind, Chapter 3, and text number 20 and 21. It is Swayambur Narado Shambho Kumara Kapilo Manu Prahlada Janako Bhishma Balir Vayashakir Vayam Dwadasaite Vijanimo Dharmam Bhagavatam Bataha Guhyam Vishuddham Durbodham Yam Gnatvar Vamratam Ashnute. Lord Brahma, Bhagavan Narada, Lord Shiva, the 4 Kumaras, Lord Kapila, Swayambhuva Manu, Prahlad Maharaj, Janaka Maharaj, Grandfather Bhishma, Bali Maharaj, Shukadev Goswami, and I is actually, this was spoken by Dharmaraj, Yamaraj. He's Dharmaraj anyway, right? So he's the Yamaraj, and he's telling that's what I is. I myself know the real religious principle. My dear servants, this transcendental religious principles, which is known as Bhagavata Dharma, or surrender unto Supreme Lord and love for Him, is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. It is very confidential and difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. But if by chance one fortunately understand it, he is immediately liberated, and thus he returns home back to Godhead. So, who are these Mahajans? He says, Krishna says to Arjuna that Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja. Give up all your duties and surrender unto me. One may ask, if this principle is very rarely understood, what is the use of it? In answer, Yamaraj states herein that this religious principle is understandable if one follows the parampara system of the Lord, Brahma, Lord Shiva, and 4 Kumaras, and other standard authorities. There are 4 lines of disciplic succession. One from Lord Brahma, one from Lord Shiva, one from Lakshmi, and the goddess of fortune, and one from Kumaras. The disciplic succession from Lord Brahma is called the Brahma Sampradaya. The succession from Lord Shiva as a Shambhu is called the Rudra Sampradaya. And the one from the Lord Goddess of Fortune, Lakshmi Ji, is called the Sri Sampradaya. And the one from the Kumaras is called the Kumara Sampradaya. And one must take shelter of one of these four Sampradayas in order to understand the most confidential religious system. In the Padma Purana, it is said, Sampradaya vihine ye mantraste nishpala mata. If one does not follow the four recognized disciplic succession, his mantra or initiation is useless. In the present day, there are many asampradayas or sampradayas which are not bona fide, which have no link to authorities like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Kumaras, or Lakshmi. People are misguided by such sampradayas. The Shastras say that being initiated in such sampradaya is useless waste of time, for it will never enable one to understand the real religious principles. So Mahajans, if you look at this, each person what is mentioned here in this verse, Prahalad Maharaj, Janaka Maharaj, Kumara, Lord Shiva, Narada, Swayambhu, Bali. So they were ready to give up their life for Krishna's service. So that means it is being said, these people, they know very confidential, which is Guhyam, very confidential, Vishuddham, transcendental, not contaminated by the material modes of nature, and Durbodham, not easily understood. So these Mahajanas, they understand very confidential knowledge, very transcendental knowledge, which is not easily understandable by anyone. That's why they are called Mahajans. And Bhishma Dev is one of them. So we heard many discussions yesterday that how Bhishma Dev, why he was on the side of Duryodhana, because of the vow, because whoever is the king, he has to support him, protect him. That was his vow. So he was with them. But the real reason, what I heard from the devotees, I was doing some research. So Radhesham Prabhu was telling that there is primary rasa and secondary rasa. And secondary rasa, I'll make it short. Secondary rasa, there is one called Virya rasa. So he's actually enacted, Bhishma Dev was enacting that Virya rasa. That means he was in that mood, and he wants to show that chivalry with, just like Hiranyakashipu, the gates of Vaikuntha, they came down to planet Earth. Planet Earth to fight with Krishna. It's a matter of chivalry, right? The same thing he also displayed. So that means he wants to act according to the will of the Lord. Bhishma Dev acted according to the will of Lord by this Virya Rasa. And there might be many, many reasons people can talk, but mainly Bhishma Dev came here and in this planet to please the Lord. Right? That was the main intention. And I just want to take a few more minutes of, we always say, Dharmat Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. And then many times we also heard Mahajana Ena Gatasa Pantha. We need to follow the footsteps of previous acharyas, especially Mahajanas. Everything boils down to the truth and what is being given by these Mahajans, right? This is also called truth, which truth comes from Guru, first of all, we need to understand Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Our spiritual master, and the Guru also follows the Sadhus, and the Sadhu also, anyway, follows the Shastras. So whatever spiritual master says, he doesn't say something from his heart, that means his realizations. He still follows from the Sadhus and Shastras. And everybody has their own realization, but in our movement, for us, Srila Prabhupada had highest realization. Okay? And so the conclusion is, what is that conclusion is? Truly and genuinely presenting the conclusion of great Mahajanas. That's where we need to follow those Mahajanas so that we can be in the, we can practice Krishna consciousness. So there are a few things which I can quickly, 2 minutes I'll take. The essence, suppose Kirtan, we are all doing Kirtan, but the essence of Kirtan is just by, whether you use the kartal or the mridangam or any musical instruments, and then we all enjoy the music. But what is the purpose of that holy name? That Kirtan is, the essence of Kirtan is the name of Krishna. Right? So on the essence of philosophy is that is based on the authoritative conclusions of the great souls like these Mahajans. That means it kicks out artha, kama, dharma, moksha, and deals only with devotion service. So this is the conclusion. And then some from the transcript of one of the lectures of Maharaj, Radhanath Maharaj, I collected few. I just want to read only a small portion of it, but not everything. Give me 1 minute. In the spirit of devotion to Krishna, Bhisma Dev took the side of Kurus. Why did Bhisma take the side of Kurus? Duryodhana was the cheater, Shakuni was the low-class gambler, and Yudhishthir was the Dharmaraj, and Arjuna was King Krishna's best friend. Why would a Mahajan be against Krishna? Not only against him, but also shooting arrows to his body. This is a mystery. But actually, he did it because, as he said, Bhishma was just so concerned with doing the service. He was not only willing to not accept any credit, but was willing to take all the blame. You see, he was the most powerful and unconquerable warrior in the whole world. This comes to when Maharaj, another pastime of Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the Haridas Thakur, he was telling why was he beaten in 21 marketplaces? The reason is he was chanting Hare Krishna, right? So that's why he was beaten in 21 marketplaces. But what Haridas Thakur says is he blames himself that so many people were blaspheming and offending the holy name. And I heard that holy name. And so that's why I need that beating. And that is why it's because of that I heard the offenses and the blaspheming of the holy name. That's why I'm getting that reaction. That's what he blames. It's similarly, Bhishma also is blaming himself. And so he was not only willing to not accept any credit, but was willing to take all the blame. You see, and he was most powerful and unconquerable warrior in the whole world. And Krishna wanted his example to the whole world that even the greatest person, the most powerful man, will be conquered if he is not on the side of dharma. Okay, now you see, you want to show the example, you really have to make a striking example. Therefore, he took the most powerful, the most highest man on all the planet, Bhishma, and from within the heart, he instructed Bhishma, right? There's so many things here. I think I'll stop there. Sorry, 8:06. And thanks for all your time. I don't think I did any justification because most of them I just read. And I had some thoughts and realizations. I just said something. So I'll stop here. And if anybody has quick discussions, questions, please go ahead. Thank you so much for all of your patience. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All good Shri Prabhupada and good night. Prabhuji, I have no comments. I just want to give you a word of appreciation. Wonderful class. You went into so much depth. I wish the class was another hour long so you could complete whatever you had. But really wonderful, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Bhagavatam, I'm just speaking about Bhagavatam, of course, reading. That's wonderful. Being in the association of devotees, reading Bhagavatam itself is wonderful. Thank you, Prabhu. If anybody has comments, otherwise I think we can stop. Lingaraj Prabhu, left to you. Mohan Lila Prabhu, I think we have some. Hari Hari Dandavat.
Prabhuji, very beautiful lecture, but for the record, Tyagraj is Telugu or Kannada? I'm just teasing
Prabhuji,
you.
Prabhuji, those days I don't think there was any difference between Telugu and Kannada. So, they were all known as, just devotional saints.
I think Tyagraj is from Tamil Nadu, actually.
Yeah, no, those are all today's divisions.
Yeah. I was reading Arjun came from my heart. Endoro Mahanubhav. Wow, where is it coming from? Then I went.
Yes, often I think that song really helped me understand, right? Because there are many great personalities. Sometimes we get inspired from one personality. That doesn't mean it undermines the other personalities. We accept the greatness of all personalities.
Correct.
We maybe that song gives a kind of a very humbling. How do I put it? It grounds us, because
yes,
often we feel that this personality is great inspiration to me, and then we kind of undermine other personalities. But I think this song is really kind of grounds us.
Yeah, it's an etiquette for us, especially for us to understand. Even that's why Prabhupada gave us this. Whether you are anybody chants the holy name, we should offer our obeisances. If he's equal in your mind, if he's more than us, offer your obeisances. Especially when Maharaj comes, everybody in the world will just offer their obeisances. That respect. So andariki vandanamulu. In that way, we have to offer our obeisances to each and every one. That's thank you, Prabhu. Okay, I think we'll stop. Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Thank you so much.